Now, it was the trial of the decade and was called one of the biggest miscarriages of justice in British soap history. What am I talking about? This, of course.
Deirdre Ann Rashid, the jury has found you guilty by a unanimous verdict of all the counts against you, and your offence was aggravated by recruiting someone else to assist you. You ensnared a vulnerable married man. On count one, conspiracy to obtain a money transfer by deception, I sentence you to 18 months imprisonment. Have you anything to say?
I didn't do any of it.
Right. Take the defendant down, will you?
I didn't do any of it.
Oh, God.
You do that all day.
Perfect. That was uncanny, Denise.
It was so like her. I remember that so clearly.
Honestly, that was 1998.
That's unbelievable.
And you were there at the time,
I
big
was,
friend of Annie.
and I feel so privileged to have been there at such an iconic time. And that Free the Weatherfield one, everybody got involved. It was you've got to remember as well that when I was in it and things like that, there was a third of the country watching it. You know, 22 million people. When I married Des Barnes, it was 21 million or something like that. You couldn't go anywhere. But Annie Kirkbride became a great friend. She was one of the funniest women that I've ever met. She dragged me off one lunchtime saying she was taking me for lunch. She was actually taking me to get me belly button pierced. She forced me to go through that. She was so obsessed with shopping at Kendall's, this department store, that one night at 6 o'clock she was racing to get to the shop, and they told her that she had an extra scene to do. She was so angry and had such a tantrum she bit a piece of her tongue off, jumping up and down. But she was an absolute hoot. But as I say, that storyline, you know, when Deirdre was, if you remember the Mike Ken triangle, I mean, it was so massive. Old Trafford at half-time in a match between Man United and somebody else, they flashed it up on the thing and the whole place erupted when she decided to stay with Ken.
I mean, it's if you want to catch it again, it's on ITV3 this afternoon. They're playing Vintage Corrie, which is getting really good audiences because people love it. I mean, it was absolutely, as you say, Denise, vintage stuff at the time. So do catch that this afternoon on ITV3. And, of course, what you saw there, you know, in the gallery, there was Ken, there was Mike, there was Liz MacDonald, all the friends that were all behind Deirdre. And they never questioned her for a second, which makes you think, if you're in that boat, that a dear friend was accused of something criminal, would you just be behind them 100%?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, because once I'm loyal to somebody, that's it. Unless there was, like, filmed evidence with them actually doing something terrible. But it would have to be something really terrible. You know, a fraud or something. Oh, OK, obviously that's terrible as well. But you know what I mean. I'm not going to... If they'd done something to another person, like a physical thing, but I would have to see evidence. I'd have to see filmed evidence, because if I really believe in somebody and they're really my friend, I'm going to believe them.
But, well, I mean, I don't suppose that is blind loyalty, because if you've seen the evidence, then you would change your mind, would you? See,
it depends on the crime. It depends.
What do you mean you wouldn't if you saw the evidence?
Well, because we're all flawed. We're all capable of doing terrible things.
But there's flawed and flawed.
Well, there's flawed and
depends
flawed.
what the crime is.
It's difficult to stop liking somebody that you've really liked and cared for and you've got history with, even if they do something terrible. I mean, I suppose it's hate the crime, but not necessarily hate the perpetrator of the crime.
It depends on the crime, though.
If it was a crime,
if it was a crime involving children, I think it would be very difficult for you to stay friends with.
Or if somebody had stolen from a vulnerable person, but say somebody had, I don't know, a fraud against a big company.
There you're making a judgment of what crime you find acceptable or not.
Terrible,
isn't it?
Well, money crime, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, hand on heart, if I saw evidence that even my closest friend in the entire world had something to do with paedophilia or child sex crime,
finished. Yeah,
I just wouldn't, because I just wouldn't be able to reconcile that in my head. I mean, you know, Deirdre, what was it, a fraud or a bank thing, or it's a white collar crime. I think that's a whole different thing. But Yeah, I mean, and also I think, again, as
I find it
journalists,
strange.
police officers, you learn to read people. And a friend of mine, whose name I won't mention, did get accused very publicly of something, and I thought to myself, I just can't see that he did this. Then I met him for lunch and I spoke to him, and I just knew he hadn't done it. And of course, actually, he ended up not even being charged, and it all fell away. But yeah, I think you have a gut instinct.
But see, I don't know. I mean, well, I would say that a guy that I used to work with, and I wouldn't say he was a close friend, but he was certainly a very well-liked part of a social circle that I was part of. I enjoyed his company. He was great fun. He was kind. He was witty, blah, 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 blah. And we'd go on big nights out, you know, back in the day. And years after I had left that place and was living hundreds of miles away, I read in the paper that actually he had been convicted of a serious crime. And it was the strangest feeling, because the crime was bad, and I certainly I hadn't had contact with him for a long time anyway, and I would have found it difficult after knowing that ever to have. But I still remembered somebody that I liked, that I'd been to dinner with. I think I've got a good instinct as well, Jane, but
No, but that's different, because you didn't see them again.
Yeah, no, but nothing at the time that I was with him told me he was a wrong one.
But this conversation is about, despite his crime,
would you
then still go out for lunch with him?
That you would. If he was out of jail, which I'm presuming he went to jail for this crime, if you saw him now, would you be happy to socialise with him, knowing the crime he did?
No, I absolutely wouldn't. But could I say that I suddenly hated him?
No, but that's saying...
I couldn't.
No.
I couldn't.
I mean, that's...
Interestingly, we did do a poll on this one. Do you have blind loyalty when it comes to sticking by your friends? 62% of you said yes, you do, and 38% said no. So there you go.